Okay, hey Fred, thanks so much for that video. I really did appreciate that. It was very thoughtful and witty, and I liked the Bill Hicks stuff at the end as well. It was very funny. I think the way that I would try to come into this question of the universe itself has become conscious of itself. Now, there's a lot of different ways to say it. One would be that, I mean, you're not the universe, but you're not it. See, I think this Douglas Harding move and all the Douglas Harding stuff on being headless is an attempt to recover something that's older and prior to what we take to be the subject-object split. See, I think the subject-object split, this emergent grid of I'm over here and others are over there and the world is over there, all of those kinds of divisions have been made out of an ongoing set of relations and practices that are more embedded and interrelated, I think, than would seem at first pass. Um, One of the it's not just say Berman's stuff, which I think, but it is Berman. Berman's trying to recognize the socio-historical emergence of a particular kind of self-awareness. So I want to see if we can go back all the way to the original. I know I'm being a little, I guess, roundabout here, but if I start with the question of what does dreamless sleep say about the whole of who we are, see, if we come into the question of who are we as a whole, and I mean the problem of non-conscious experience while you're dreamlessly asleep. See, when you're dreamlessly asleep, there doesn't seem to be a kind of passage of time. There doesn't seem to be, I mean, there's a total erasure of the world and of senses of self, and each person wakes up having been undifferentiated. That's part of, I mean, it's the life is not only posed by its emergence out of nothing in the sense of birth and a return to nothing in the sense of death, but every day there's a little gap or a lapse in what we take to be consciousness. And I think there's a kind of reminder in dreamless sleep of an organic rootedness. I mean, it's like we become plants. We're vegetative for a certain part of the the day. Now, that's life itself. Okay, so life itself is a kind of awareness, a kind of consciousness, and that consciousness isn't necessarily self-aware. It doesn't have a clearing of space and time and items of concern that it deals with and cares about. This sort of ecstatical clearing of care that Heidegger talks about, or the set of possibilities and responsibilities, things that I have to be for Sartre. I think these are very different than what we mean when we say there's just a body there in respiratory process and digestive process, and if the person would be, sometimes people say it'd be best to be killed in your sleep. It's like people imagine it wouldn't even be noticed, right? So there's this question there about, are there levels of consciousness and awareness that aren't what we would recognize as self-aware consciousness? Okay, I think there are. Now, when I wake up, I'm self-conscious. And by that I mean I have directed awareness. Now there is, I guess, a whole nother layer on that, a whole nother layer, which is the socio-historical constitution by which self has been made an object to itself. See, I think the self made an object to itself is a derived phenomena out of self-awareness. And there's also a kind of base level of organic awareness that, again, we probably wouldn't recognize as awareness. We call it just digestive process. But as you move up this scale, you finally get to advent of literacy. Now, the book, hey, this is Edmund Carpenter's "Oh, What a Blow That Phantom Gave Me." And it's a fascinating book. If people know who Mike Wesch is here on YouTube, Mike Wesch was a student of Edmund Carpenter, and Carpenter was paid by the government of New Guinea to do research there, looking at holy oral or tribal peoples, and was there to witness some of the experiences and of these people encountering things like radio and photographs and film and tape recordings and mirrors. The issue of mirrors is really fascinating. So, I mean, there is a kind of self-awareness that comes from particular communication technologies. That is, we could talk about it in a grand scale of history, from tribal life where the individual is submerged into an acoustical web of resonance. It's a kind of self-consciousness, but it's really a collective unconsciousness of which the individual just sort of lives out as a practice. When literacy and self-reflexive orientations toward one's own speech occurs, we move out of tribal oral society into the slow and steady development over thousands of years of individuals who legislate their action and autonomy through publics who are formed through laws, and laws help to govern anonymous and individual practices. So increasingly levels of self, the individual has increasingly been freed from first being a vegetable. You know, it's evolution is wrong. I mean, we got to go all the way back to plants, man. You slowly emerge into animality, and you're eating and you're doing all this kind of stuff. But you're also very human, and there is a, again, this sort of progression all the way, I guess you'd say, up to where the person starts to contemplate and reflect upon, okay, because of the mirror, and then they become aware of themselves through all kinds of communication technologies. They become literate. We move from tribal societies into publics. Now we're all electric. We've become masses, and there's this reconvergence, I think, in a lot of ways, of there's like this new level of collective, I guess a collective unconscious is rising again, but this notion of the individual being a place and moment of the universe becoming conscious of itself. I mean, I think the problem is when people think of self-awareness, they just have a misplaced concreteness. They don't realize that they're places and moments of the cosmos. You know, again, it's so much of the Douglas Harding stuff, I think, is the right way to come at some of that. I think part of the issue is to, I mean, maybe ask, and I think this question that you were raising about, is it this sort of one mind that's holographically? It's not that the universe is one big mind and it is a thing that's becoming self-aware. It's that each one of us, in becoming self-aware, we are, each of us is the universe. Are we not the universe? Are you going to say there is a universe, and then within that universe each consciousness is occurring? Because you're going to have a set containing itself in an odd way. Somehow the universe is contained within each mind as the set. See, I think otherwise you end up again with the universe as the set and each individual mind within it, whereas what happens is in an odd way, because like the back of your head is the outside of the universe, again, to use a ridiculous visualist metaphor, because the universe doesn't have an outside and it's all inner space, and its inner space is inside of a mind, then each person isn't like making up the world. It's, look, Alan Watts has a great line where he says, just as a tree flowers, the earth peoples. It's wonderful, yeah, just as a tree flowers, the earth peoples, and people world. Yes, people come out of the earth and worlds come out of people, and people, humans, moderns, we find ourselves within the technological world that we have created socio-culturally, not just evolutionarily. Hope some of that makes sense. Hey, Fred, thanks a lot.